What up, everyone? So, we've got another review here. So I know there's a bunch of stuff going on at E3, and I'm definitely going to make a video about that as well, but I want to wait till the whole convention is over. In the meantime, I have a review that I just actually picked up today, and there's some need-to-know information about this that it took me a long time to figure out, so I want to make sure to get this video out there so that everyone else knows the information. So there's some important stuff we need to talk about, so sit down and shut up and listen. First of all, a series that was announced a really long time ago. I think it was actually last year, or very early this year. I've been really getting into... You want to come up here? Okay. I've been really getting into these Pint Size Heroes. This is going to be the review of the Street Fighter Pint Size Heroes. And these are ones I picked up from Gamestop, because so far that's the only place they've showed up. And they were announced a long time ago. I was super excited for them, because I really like Street Fighter. And... Stop. I really like Street Fighter, and there really aren't too many good collectibles for Street Fighter. They've done some pop figures, which were okay. They weren't that special. But these are the only ones I've actually really liked. And I'm sure there will be a lot more to come, but they just haven't really been a good series. So this is a good one to kind of tide us over till there's like some more detailed ones. These are very simplistic. The Pint Size Heroes are, intentionally so. But I really like this series. I was very excited for it because I'm a big, huge Street Fighter fan. So... things we need to talk about first, and that is the packaging here. So I showed up at GameStop. There's going to be two sets of exclusives. I'm not sure where the second set of exclusives are yet. I think they're going to be Hot Topic, but I'm not totally sure. But GameStop has 3 exclusives, and those are Viper, Gil, and DJ. So I went and picked up a case there, but the problem was I looked at the packaging, and I noticed that the exclusives were actually not on the packaging. So, for those of you who don't know, Funko's been doing this with Pint Size Heroes specifically. What they'll do is they'll release a series with a base set of around 12. Then they'll release the same series, including the exclusives. Usually with stuff like Mystery Minis, they'll switch out characters for the exclusives. Like for the Horror Mystery Minis, when they did Hot Topic exclusives, they took 3 of the base set out and put 3 of the Hot Topic exclusives in their place. But with Pint Size Heroes, they don't do that. When they do the exclusives, they just add it to the set. So when a store gets store exclusives, they get the additional 3, but now that set of 12 becomes a set of 15. So that's what happens. Instead of trading them out, they add them in. And I think this is a sales tactic. What they do is release the base series, and people will buy them up, and then wait a while to release the exclusives, so then people have to go repurchase them to get those exclusives. So that's something to note, that there is a base series, and the exclusives are in addition to that. So when I looked at the back of the package, I didn't see the exclusives on there. And I thought that's really weird because there's no way that Funko would miss an opportunity to make money. And these exclusives are like the #1 selling point for that store for this specific series. So I thought that was really odd. So I kind of asked the people at GameStop. Sometimes they're pretty knowledgeable, usually about games, but no one really knew. So I kind of asked him a few questions on what he knew about it, and he didn't really know. And I kind of explained the situation to him, because I was going to buy a whole case, but I didn't want to do it if it didn't have the exclusives, because then I was only getting a set of 12, and I would have to go recollect them. And I've seen this before, where stores that have store exclusives accidentally get the base set instead through some kind of glitch in the system. So I wanted to be sure, but there was no real way to find out. So I tried to do all this research online, Googling stuff here and there, to try and get any info on it, and I could find nothing. No pictures on eBay or Google or anything. So I asked him to look it up on his system, and he noticed that in the picture, the actual case that they have in there was different as well. Instead of having Zangief here, it had a Viper in the corner. So the box was different as well. So I thought, I didn't know how, but somehow they had gotten the base set series. Anyway, I stood there and talked to him for a while, and I started just feeling around in the packages, went through the entire case of 24, and then eventually found the 3 exclusives here. So what the important information you need to know is that they're not actually shown in the box, and they're not actually shown on the package, but they are in there. All there was on the box was this tiny little sticker that said, only at Gamestop. That's the only indicator known there. So I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible in case anyone else is running into this exact same problem I did, because it took me a long time to figure it out. I was in there for like 2 hours trying to ask questions and figure it out until I eventually literally went through every single package and felt around for them. And luckily, I've done this so much, I'm good at it, that I was able to scout out each character individually and figure that out. So the reason I bring this up is because I don't know if this is going to be the same situation in the future. The problem is, I don't know, there's going to be another set of exclusives, and I don't know where that's going to be. None of us know yet because it hasn't shown up. And the exclusives are going to be Dalsim, Balrog, and Rose. So this is going to be the problem I'm sure someone's going to run into, that they might not have any different packaging, so no one's going to really know where they're going to show up. They could be Hot Topic, they might not be, but we're not going to know by looking at the package. We're not going to know until someone goes out and buys it and opens it up. So that's why I want to get this out in the community, and hopefully we can figure it out. Hopefully Funko has noticed this and is creating a different package. Maybe that's why they haven't shown up yet. It's because they had to recall these boxes and make new ones. So I thought that was extremely strange that this happened. That Funko, obviously it's a mistake on their part, because like I said, there's no way Funko would miss an opportunity to make money. And they purposely make separate boxes. It even shows it online. When you go to Gamestop.com and search for this item, the box is different and the package is different. But for some reason, they didn't show it when they actually showed up in stores. Again, it has to be some kind of glitch, so make sure you're aware of that, and hopefully none of the GameStops got the regular set, so no one makes that mistake, but it's something to note, and that's something to note when you're looking for the 3 future exclusives. So that's why I want to get this video out and make sure everyone knows that that is a current problem, and hopefully hopefully they'll fix that solution for the next exclusives. So, now that we've got that out of the way, now that everyone knows, in case anyone's confused by that, the 3 exclusives for GameStop, like I said, I'll show a picture, are Gil, Viper, and DJ, and they are each 1 of 24 rarity. So there's only 1 of each of those in a pack, or in a box case. Everyone else is 1 of 12. So that's something that was also need-to-know information, because there's no indicator of that. It doesn't say anywhere on the back here, but I know for a fact those are 1 of 24, where everyone else is 1 of 12. So I assume where the next set of exclusives, wherever they show up, I assume those 3 are going to be 1 of 24 as well. So they're much rarer, they're much harder to find. You can find them online, but like I said, they're a much higher price because they are much rarer, whether people realize it or not. Now let's get into the actual review of the series. First of all, I really like this series. Pint Size Heroes have really grown on me. I thought the concept was stupid when I first saw them, but they really are starting to grow on me, and I really like them. They're very simplistic, which kind of turns some people off to it, but they're intentionally simplistic. They kind of look like little weebles, and it's intentionally so, but that's kind of what I like about it, the oversimplicity of these characters. The only thing that's really different about them is their heads. Most of their bodies are pretty much the same. But I still really like it because, 1, they're cheaper. They're only $3 or $4 depending on where you get them from. And 2, they're much easier to display. I just like the style of them in general. And aside from like mystery minis, they're a little bit bigger, they're a little more expensive, they often look a little bit awkward, a lot of them are bobbleheads and stupid stuff like that. So here's a situation where you can get Marvel and DC collectibles, but they don't have to be bobbleheads like all the Pops and mystery minis, so that's kind of nice. And keep in mind that I have already done a review of Pint Size Heroes in general, just of the entire series, so this review that I'm doing here is going to be different because it's specific to this one series. So yeah, overall I really liked it. Like I said, I'm a big Street Fighter fan, and it's really cool to see characters that are normally like really tough looking, like kind of adorable in a way. They're just kind of like cute and small. Because normally these characters are super buffed out. It's literally called Street Fighter. They're usually beating the shit out of each other left and right, but it's cool to see them in this way. Things to note about the series, much like the retro mystery minis ones, there are a few that stand out. Like in that series how Mega Man stood out, there's a few that stand out here. So as you can tell, most of these characters are based from Street Fighter 2, which most people would consider like the original Street Fighter. Even though it's the second one, most people consider that the original because that was the popular one. Nobody played Street Fighter 1. So most of the characters are from that, with the exception of some of the exclusives. Now, the exclusives from this series are Gil and Viper, and one of the exclusives from wherever the other series shows up is Rose. So those are very obviously from much later editions of Street Fighter. Sorry about that, camera cut me off, had a little technical difficulty there. Like I was saying, so most of these characters are from Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo, with the exception of those 3 who are left out. Something else to notice is that they got every single character from the Street Fighter 2 series except for one. And oh, sorry, it took me a second. The one character that is missing is Fei Long. And why they left him out and no one else is kind of weird. It's a little bit of a mystery. I'm not sure why they would do all Street Fighter 2 and leave out that one character. That seems very odd to me. And in addition to that, they would put in characters from Street Fighter 4 and like Street Fighter 3 and things like that. So much more modern characters. They would put in those 3 but leave out a very obvious one from Street Fighter 2. That seems very weird to me, and I'm not sure why they would do that. I'm sure there's some explanation to it, but they don't really say it. I think they should have kept out the Street Fighter 4 characters, done all of Street Fighter 2, and maybe in the next series done Street Fighter 3 and Street Fighter 4, so on and so forth, and maybe some alternate colors. That's the other thing that was missing from this series. I thought for sure they would do exclusives with alternate colors, like the obvious ones like Ken and Ryu have a whole bunch of alternate ones, or done like Oni Akuma or something like that, or all of them have a lot of palette swaps, so I thought maybe they'd do that, but they didn't. They did all the traditional colors here, which is not a big deal. I just was surprised that they didn't do that, and again, surprised they left out the one character. So that doesn't really affect the score or anything, or the series overall, just something I thought was worth mentioning, because I thought it was a bit odd. But yeah, I really like this series. I specifically like little Akuma here. I think he's my favorite. He's one of my favorite characters, so it's really cool to see him. So now let's get into the actual review process of this and talk about that a little bit. So the first score I always give is the concept and design, the overall idea of it, the concept of it, coming up with it, things like that, how they design them. So for that, I think they did a really good job, 7.5 out of 10. And it could have been higher, but for the figures like these, it's not really complicated to do the designs, but they're very simplistic, which does make it a little easier to do, but I still like the idea of it anyway. And there is some little nuances here that they do add. The bodies are the same for the most part, but they added little subtle details here, like Vega. I don't know how well the camera's going to focus here. You can see on one of his hands, he actually has his claws, and it's not just painted on there, it's actually carved. So he has little claws that come out. So it's little subtle details like that that I thought were pretty cool. And they have his tattoo and the little markings on his mask. So I really like that they actually went in and did the detail there. So that shows that they're not being simplistic because they're lazy. They're being simplistic intentionally. So that's something I like. As long as they're doing it intentionally, that's cool. And they put in little minor details like that that shows they are actually thinking these things through, and they do want to make them as detailed as possible while keeping them simplistic. So I like the idea of that, so that's why it gets a good score on there. So next would be the paint job. And the paint job is kind of rough. Again, for most of these figures, the paint job is very simplistic, and most of the facial details are not painted on. They're more of the stick-on facial details, and what that is more like of a... How they do that process is almost like the wash-on tattoo, where it's not technically painted on, it's a little sticker design they kind of print on there, a stamp, I guess you call it, kind of like that. So that's how the facial features are, and so the paint job is very simple, but there's obviously some flaws on here. Like the Ryu I got, who was actually the display on the box, you can see his eyebrows there, and on the mask, it's very obviously off, so it's a bit askew there. So it's not a big deal because they're so small, and it's so simple anyway, but you can definitely tell the paint job is not super great, so it's only going to get a 4 out of 10 on the paint job. Luckily, like I said, since the facial details are printed on there, those are good, so it still looks good overall. And a lot of the characters, their hair is separate from their head, it's kind of placed on there, so the paint job there is just one solid color, so even though the paint job's not great, overall they still look pretty good, but the paint job only gets a 4 out of 10. Lastly, the sculpt. The sculpt is done well, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not super detailed either. I still like it, I still think they did a good job, but I think it was just an average sculpt job, so I'm only going to give that a 5 out of 10, because it wasn't bad by any means, but it wasn't great either. They didn't do anything super fantastic. I did like the little claws they did on Vega, I think they did a good job, but other things, it was just very easy for them to do, so it just gets an average score of a 5 out of 10. So overall, averaging it all together, this gets a total score of a 5.5 out of 10, which I think is pretty merited because, you know, I like this series, but I'm also a Street Fighter fan. And that's basically what I would say overall. If you're a Street Fighter fan, you'd probably love this series. If you're not, then maybe not so much. And I know that sounds redundant to say, but that's not the case with everything. There have been a lot of series that I've picked up that I wasn't a specific fan of that game or movie, but they did such a good job on the figures, I really liked collecting them. That's how I got started in the horror mystery minis. A lot of those movies I wasn't that big of a fan of. Didn't hate them or anything, but I just loved the series so much and I loved the style, I ended up collecting them. Now I own every single horror mystery mini in existence. So it's not always stupid to say, like, if you're not a fan, don't get it. But for this series, I would say it's more geared towards people that are more fans. And honestly, since there aren't that many Street Fighter collectibles out there, and even the ones that aren't done that well, that's why I like this series, because there's so few of them out there. They've kind of missed an opportunity. I think they should do more in the future. But if you're not a Street Fighter fan, they're not so amazing where you're like, oh, I would need to have those. It's more specifically if you're a fan of them. The good news about them is if you're looking for a specific character, they're very easy to find in the package. Because as you can tell, the way to search for a figure is obviously by the shape of their head. The bodies are all the same. You can very easily tell which figure's which because the heads are all extremely different in style. There's pretty much no two heads that are alike, which wasn't the case for, like, the Power Rangers one. Their masks are all almost identical. It's very subtle details, which is hard to feel through the package. Same with the Spider-Man one. A lot of the Spider-Man characters were exactly the same. Like Spider-Man, Venom, Anti-Venom were almost exactly the same shape. They just had different paint jobs. And the same with the Batman ones. There were so many color swaps on Batman, it was hard to tell. But with this series, they're all completely different. Like, Guile has a flat top, and, like, Akuma has his little above-head ponytail, and a lot of them have hats that are different shapes. So they're all completely different shapes, so they're very easy to find in the package, which will be the case for a lot of the exclusives too. It will be different for the other ones because Dalsim has a pretty simple shape to him and some other characters, but that's the cool thing about it. If you are looking for a specific character, it's kind of weird to sometimes sit in the store and search for them, but if you have the time and means, why not? And what I've been doing to collect this series, and I always try to give tips on how to collect. Normally they're in boxes and there's a box layout, but for these, I'll buy a full case, take them home so I'm not some weirdo creeper sitting in a toy store trying to feel them out. I'll take them all home, get as many as I can, feel them out on my own, take as much time as I want, figure out which characters are which, keep the ones I want, and then go return the ones that I ended up getting duplicates of. And it seems like kind of a weird move to do, but you know, it's not technically breaking any rules. You're not, as long as you don't open the packages, it should be fine to return them. And then, that way, if you buy the whole case, you get to keep the 2 display figures as well. You don't technically have to return those either. So that's an option. It's up to you if you feel weird returning those or not. But if not, you can pretty easily find which ones are which in the store. So that's the good news about it. But overall, I really like this series, and I was happy to get them, and I'm looking forward to getting the next 3 exclusives. So you guys will have to let us know in the comments or on the community page. If anyone does figure out where the next 3 exclusives are going to be, let us all know, just in case we have the same situation here where it's not printed on the box and it's not printed on the bag. I guess the only way to tell is if whatever company gets them, they'll have that little tiny sticker on there. Other than that, hopefully they change the package, but there's no way to tell for sure. So, I hope you guys like this, and I hope you guys like this series. More to come, and I will be doing an E3 video talking about that stuff. And also the last box of May, May just showed up today, so I'll be doing my monthly review too, so things to look forward to. So, in the meantime, thank you all for watching this review and listening to me talk. Pup's getting cranky, and now he's tired. And that's our cue to go. Thank you all for watching. Love you all. Peace. Oh, thank you.